Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Marie Holiday, and today is Monday, October the 26th, 2020. And I hope everybody had a fabulous day today, a fabulous weekend. And before we get started with our today's topic, I just want to remind all of my viewers and remind my subscribers to make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification button. And I really do want to thank everyone who's been taking out the time out of their life to support my channel, to follow my channel, and pass the word around. So with that being said, let's get down to today's topic. I want to talk about, this is a very important topic. Today I'm going to talk about five indicators of alcohol or drug addiction. 5 indicators of someone who has alcohol or drug addiction. Before I get started, I do want to remind the audience, I'm not just going to present these indicators from a science standpoint. I do want to remind the audience that I am a master level licensed clinical addiction specialist. I specialize in assessing and treating people for alcohol or drug addiction. I'm credentialed in 3 different states, in the state of North Carolina, in the state of Virginia, and in the state of Georgia. I've been in the field as a credentialed expert for over 19 years. And so one of the things I'm going to deliberately do is I am going to present this valuable, powerful information. I'm not going to be using these big old textbook words. No, that don't impress nobody. I am going to speak this information or deliver this information in everyday, everyday, bottom line language where any person in the audience will be able to understand what I'm talking about. So with that being said, let's get started. But before I talk about the 5 indicators of alcohol or drug addiction, I first want to give a description of what exactly is alcohol or drug addiction. First of all, addiction to alcohol or drugs is when the body and the brain have now come to depend on alcohol or drugs in order to function normally. That's one description of drug addiction, alcohol addiction. When the body and the brain, because alcohol, the disease of alcoholism, and drug addiction also, we all know it changes the brain chemistry. So when the body and the brain have come to depend on alcohol or drugs for normal functioning. In addition, the alcohol or drugs now can trigger and create very strong cravings for the user to drink or use. So because of the excessive alcohol or drug use, it now can trigger to create strong cravings for the user. In addition, another description of what describes alcohol or drug addiction is the user will sometimes experience loss of control. The craving to use is very strong, very intense, and to the point where the person may tell themselves, I'm only going to drink a little or use a little, but it's like they have no internal mechanism to say enough is enough. But in reality, that's due to loss of control. If the user does not use alcohol or drugs, the user may experience some degree of withdrawal. That's another indicator, that's another description of alcohol or drug use. If the user does not use alcohol or drugs, the user may experience some degree of withdrawal. It's varying degrees of withdrawal. So that's just a watered down, simplified version of a description of what alcohol or drug addiction is. But now I'm going to talk about these 5 indicators. 5 indicators of alcohol or drug addiction. Indicator number 1 is periodic loss of control. Once we begin to use, the user may experience a sense of not being in charge of how much or how long we will use. The individual may tell themselves, I'm only going to just stop by this establishment, have a few drinks, whatever. But once they start, they literally cannot stop. In reality, this is really due to loss of control. And that's a primary indication of alcohol or drug addiction is periodic loss of control. One way people experience loss of control is once they start using, they might not stop until some outside force stops them. The drinks or the drugs run out, the money runs out, or the person is simply too tired or sick to continue. And what I mean by that outside force, it can be many things: relationship issues, financial issues, DWIs, jail, prisons, etc. In reality, when we talk about this loss of control, it's like there is no internal mechanism to take over and to say enough is enough. But in reality, it's due to loss of control in addiction. Indicator number 2, after I drink my coffee. Indicator number 2 is using external measures to control the drinking or drug use. The person will begin to use external measures to control the drinking or drug use, meaning only drinking or using drugs on the weekends because the person may not can trust themselves to use during the week. The person may not make it to work or class the next day. Or only taking a limited amount of money with me to control the amount that I drink or use is another example of using external measures to control. Taking someone with me who I think would keep me from drinking or using more than I plan. Another example is never drinking or using after 5 p.m. because the person may tell themselves, if I start at lunch, I may not stop and I may not return to work or class. Those are all of some examples of external measures of control. Another good example is changing brands, beverages, beverage type, drug type, or places I use in hopes I can control myself better under those circumstances. Those are other examples of external measures to control. Indicator number 3, another indicator of alcohol or drug addiction, indicator number 3 is intense cravings. People who are experiencing loss of control may also experience an intense craving due to changes taking place in the brain. I'm not going to go too much into brain chemistry other than for the audience to understand is that people who are experiencing loss of control may also experience intense cravings due to changes taking place in the brain. Alcohol and drug use changes the brain chemistry over time. So because of that, intense cravings can begin with subtle reminders of the alcohol or drug use. Certain people, places, time of day, some pictures of drink or drug use, and so forth can all trigger these intense cravings for the user. So in short, the desire to use can become quite strong, and as a result, they continue with the vicious cycle of the alcohol or drug use, driving a person to use despite having knowledge of all the negative consequences, such as loss of freedom, family, money, job. But in reality, we got to understand what's going on here with the loss of control and the cravings. Indicator number 4. Indicator number 4. Varying degrees of withdrawal. Many people often believe withdrawal is necessary in order to be addicted to alcohol or drugs. However, through recent research that they discovered that there are different degrees of withdrawals can occur with many substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs. However, withdrawal is not necessary for addiction to be present. Many people do not experience any withdrawal because if you think about it, if they're when they get into the later stages of addiction and their alcohol or drug use has progressed to literally daily use, they're using a maintenance amount, and that maintenance amount is going to have a direct impact on not experiencing withdrawal. So that's why the researchers are saying some people don't even experience withdrawal, but many people do not experience withdrawal. Even when people do, it is often mild and not recognized as withdrawal. And some examples of mild withdrawal in that can really tie into a person not really recognizing that they're going through withdrawals, but in reality they are. Some examples of mild withdrawals from alcohol or drug use: agitation, sleeplessness, irritability, mild shakes, flu-like symptoms, craving, difficulty concentrating, or headaches. All of those are some examples of mild indication of withdrawal. Then we got withdrawal more on the severe end. Depending on the alcohol or drug use or the severity of it. Some people go through experience withdrawals. They can hallucinate. They can have the shakes. They can feel like bugs are crawling under their skin. And withdrawal can be life-threatening. When they get to that point, the person would need to go into detox. Indicator number 5. Fifth indicator in regards to alcohol or drug addiction: changing intolerance. And what I mean by that is, as the alcoholism or drug problem progress, tolerance begins to increase. What tolerance is the more and more and more of the alcohol or drug the person uses, tolerance rises. The human body recognizes alcohol and drugs as toxin and as poison. And what the body do to respond to that is it raises the tolerance. So as the alcoholism or drug addiction progress, tolerance continues to increase. However, in the later stages of addiction, what we see in the field of addiction, we will begin to see an erratic tolerance, because now the person's body is increasingly damaged, the organs are damaged, and it can no longer process the alcohol or drugs as it once did. And you begin to see that in the later stages of addiction. In the later stages of addiction, tolerance changes in a way that makes it hard to feel the high in the same way. Even though we may be intoxicated, the individual does not feel that they're intoxicated. People often describe this as using to feel normal rather than to feeling high. So what's going on in the later stages of addiction, because if the organs are beginning to get damaged, is no longer processing the alcohol or drugs like it once did, which contributes to the erratic tolerance. Tolerance may then actually drop so that it takes less to become intoxicated or high in later stages of addiction. And that's not a good sign, because now you're getting into all these other medical problems that has been directly linked to the alcohol or drug addiction. These changes can seem confusing. People may say, well, I don't feel high or drunk, and see things as signs of getting better, but in reality, that's a sign that the organs are damaged and the body is shutting down, and that contributes to explaining why sometimes when they can't use as much as they could in the past, but in reality, that's due to the damaging of the organs. So a lot of times the person may get frustrated and use more substance in order to get high, in an effort to feel that high initially that they felt, which can also have an impact on other problems, accidental overdose, etc. The lack of a high can make it seem safe in the mind to the person to use, but in reality, it is a dangerous time for overdose. So those are the 5 indicators. Those are the 5. There are other indicators. I'm going to talk about those other indicators in a different video upload, because I stated previously to the audience that with this whole topic of addiction, I'm not going to throw all this information at you at one time. I'm going to give it to you in piecemeal. So for right now, I presented to the audience 5 indicators of alcohol or drug addiction. Number 1, periodic loss of control. And basically what that is as if the person has no internal mechanism to say enough is enough. They may have very good intention of having 1 or 2 drinks or a little bit of drug use, but once they begin, it's like that addiction is released and they cannot control themselves. Indicator number 2, using external measures to control the amount that I drink or use. For example, designated driver, or taking someone with me, or getting someone to hold my money so I won't use up or drink all my money. All these are examples of external efforts to control, only using at a certain time of the day, etc. Indicator number 3, intense cravings. Intense cravings. As the person alcoholism or drug addiction progress, excuse me, as the person alcoholism or drug addiction progress, so do these cravings begin to intensify. Certain people, places, or things that they see can be a trigger for these cravings. Certain pictures, certain people, certain movies, certain images can be a trigger for the alcoholic or drug addict to have these cravings that has a direct impact on the use. Indicator number 4, varying degrees of withdrawal. You know, withdrawals can vary from no withdrawal to mild withdrawal to severe withdrawal. And when we're talking about the mild withdrawal, we're talking about the irritability, the restlessness, just mild shaking can be an example of mild withdrawal. And then we have a severe withdrawal where a person can have hallucinations, they can have body aches, they can have seizures, they can feel like bugs are crawling under their skin. And yes, people can die from symptoms of severe withdrawal without treatment. Indicator number 5, changing intolerance. Let me explain again what that means. Changing intolerance. We all know the definition of tolerance is the more and more of the alcohol or drugs that I use, my tolerance will rise. If the user begin to slow down on their use, the tolerance will begin to go back down again. But what we see in severe addiction, what's going on with that tolerance in the field of addiction with what we call the erratic tolerance or a break in tolerance, meaning sometimes the person can use a whole lot and not feel a thing, and then sometimes they can use a little bit and it wipes them out for a couple of days. It's unpredictable, it's erratic. And the reason why that tolerance is unpredictable and erratic, because excessive alcohol and drug use for years begins to have an effect on the organs, so the organs is no longer metabolizing the alcohol or drugs like it once did. It's now becoming more difficult for the person to recover from use, or some days they can drink a whole lot and not feel a thing. That's why we call it erratic. And so when we're looking at that erratic tolerance or break intolerance in the severe signs of addiction, that's not a good sign. So those are all of the 5 indicators of alcohol or drug addiction. As I continue with my uploads, I'm going to talk more about treatment, go more into depth and breadth about treatment for alcohol or drug addiction. You know, there are varying degrees of treatment. They have detox, they have outpatient, they have inpatient, they have residential. In addition, a person can go to support groups. But in my ongoing series that I'm going to upload about this, I'll go more in depth and breadth about the treatment for addiction. There are other indicators of addiction that I'm going to upload in different videos, because this information is so valuable. I'm not going to cram it into one video. This is a very serious topic. There are many people right now who are watching this, I have no doubt, who know someone who is suffering from the disease of addiction. The disease of addiction, I compare it to a tornado. It once it touches down, similar to how when a tornado touched down, it would destroy everything in its path. You know, the disease of addiction, alcoholism and drug addiction, don't just affect the individual, it affects everyone around that person, close to that person, the mother, the father, the sister, brother, niece, aunt, significant others, grandparents. It has an impact on all those around them. So like I said, be on the lookout for more uploads on my substance abuse series. This is powerful information. If you know someone who's going through addiction, pass this video along, let them listen to it, let them know that there's 1-800 numbers they can call, etc. So with that being said, audience, here we go again. I hope you all got something out of this. Simplify, and you all have a great evening.